Abilene's Rock Station, Rock 108. This is the Afternoon Binge. I'm the Painman, and I now have the honor of being joined on the phone by the legendary Geoff Tate of Operation Mindcrime. Geoff, how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. I literally have goosebumps on my arms right now, and I don't get that way all the time. But for those listening, Geoff is one of the most legendary voices in all of rock history. Brought us hits like Jet City Woman, Silent Lucidity, Eyes of a Stranger. I mean, I can go on and on and on. It's, this really is an incredible honor. And to be able to start off my brand new afternoon show with someone of your stature is awesome. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Now let's talk about, everybody knows about the history that you've got with Queensryche, but we've got a new chapter in Geoff Tate's life known as Operation Mindcrime. First off, give us a little insight on why you chose the name Operation Mindcrime.
Well, I have a new project. It's kind of a more focused on conceptual writing.
Right.
And I have a trilogy of albums that are coming out. The first one just came out September 18th. It's called The Key. And it's a story, one long story told over 3 records. And quite an interesting project, more, I guess, aimed at my roots of music, which came from progressive rock.
Now, you're talking about the debut album being The Key. This was just released. It's part of a trilogy. Now, I mean, when people think of trilogies, there are plenty of trilogies that you can immediately envision, like in cinema. So at the end of, say, a Star Wars movie, you're automatically set up for the next one. People already start creating these storylines, what could happen next. Is that the way that you kind of went with The Key?
A little bit, yeah. Well, I kind of think in terms of cinema when I write music, and so the songs are like scenes in a film.
Right on.
And they kind of tell or set the tone for what's happening, what's in the storyline. So if you listen to it from front to end, that's how it's designed. Really, it all starts making sense. And the last track on the album is called "The Fall," and that kind of sets us up for the second record.
I was actually about to ask you about that because I had read that The Fall is the end of this record and the beginning of the next. Now, is it something that, the next record will have The Fall in full on it, or, kind of how does that lead into it?
Well, you have to kind of wait and see, but it definitely sets up for the beginning of the second record. Definitely.
Yeah, you caught where I was going with it. I was trying to catch you.
I did, and I wasn't going to fall into the trap.
Geoff Tate of Operation Mindcrime. You've been doing this. You've been doing this a while. You know that when the radio people try to bait the hook like that, you've probably never been caught on stuff like that.
No, I have a few times, yeah.
So
and regretted it.
Oh, we've all got regrets in our life. That's what makes us the people that we are today. That's it's all good. But let's not talk about regrets. Let's talk about inspiration. I mean, because literally a legendary voice in the history of rock and roll, legendary musician, legendary artist. You've been the inspiration for so many artists to follow you. I mean, I've heard over and over bands come in the studio at like Geoff Tate. And, because radio, we got to ask those cliche questions. What's your inspiration? Geoff Tate. So what inspires Geoff Tate? You've been the inspiration for so many, but what does it for you on a daily basis?
Oh, gosh. I find it at my age, which, I'm approaching 60 now.
No, whoa. Wait a minute. Hold on. You're kidding me.
I know. It's crazy to think.
Dude, the pictures of you look like 30 years old.
A lot of my musical inspiration came from the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
The time period I kind of grew up in, which was really a wonderful time in music. And there were so many great bands and artists creating really unique music at the time. And that's really where I was inspired by conceptual work. The Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's was the first album I ever bought.
Wow.
And that kind of set the tone for what I became interested in, later on.
Yeah. Now, okay, so with that being said, I as well I draw a lot of I'm not a musician, but being around music, I have a lot of inspiration, a lot of influence from earlier stuff, like you were talking about. I've got a lot, from the Beatles, from Zeppelin, Sabbath, and stuff like that. If that's where you draw yours, do you have any muses of the day? I mean, is there anything that really has caught your ear with modern day music? Doesn't have to be rock, whether it's, any kind of genre. Is there anything that really sticks out to you?
Well, I like a lot of different kinds of music. I have probably 10,000 albums in my collection, and from all styles, really, from, classical music to R&B to jazz, opera, you name it. And I've got examples of it. I don't know if I could really name a certain artist or that I find inspirational. There's a lot of great music out nowadays. Yeah. My biggest challenge is I don't have a lot of time to listen to a lot of stuff because I'm pretty much wrapped up in what I'm doing.
Right.
So and when you're writing music and writing songs, the songs you're working on are constantly playing in your head, so listening to other music doesn't really, I don't know, it kind of becomes a distraction.
Oh, I got you.
In a sense.
Yeah.
So, I don't even have a way to play music in my car. So I'm completely, immersed in my own thing most of the time.
Well, no, and that makes complete sense. I mean, because with the style that you've kind of written your entire life and stuff. Because I mean, you were talking about you come from a conceptual type of era and type of influence and stuff, and the way that you write, I can see I can see literally Geoff Tate driving in his car and lyrics just falling out. Like on those movies, you see, the guys envisioning the numbers floating in the sky and stuff. I literally, I can see Geoff Tate driving in his car and music notes and lyrics are just kind of floating around in the, in the abyss there. That's kind
of really the way it is. And, oftentimes I have a little recording device I carry around with me so I can, put down my ideas because at my age I start forgetting stuff. I got to remember what I'm writing.
I hear you. Hey, being around all these years, let's talk real quickly how you've been able to keep your voice up all these years. I mean, you've got one of the most distinctive sounds, and you haven't lost it. I mean, you can go back decades to a variety of different artists that are still performing to this day that just don't have it. And Geoff Tate still has it. I mean, is there a specific regimen that you follow that keeps it up, or is it just natural?
Well, I think part of it is your mental state.
Okay.
I think if you keep yourself in a positive frame of mind and surround yourself with positive people, that kind of keeps your spirits up and it keeps you in a creative state of mind. Which is I think 90% of it, and the other 10% is keeping yourself physically active, being agile and working out and that kind of thing. It's very, very important. The older you get, you just don't have the metabolism that you used to have as a kid. So you have to work extra hard at that.
Yeah. Well, it's from Geoff Tate's mouth to your ears. You got to stay mentally and physically alert and active, and that's I got to tell you, man, this really is an incredible honor to have you on the phone, and I'll try to wrap it up here in just a second. I got to ask you one thing about the key, though, the first of the trilogy from Operation Mindcrime. I mean, you've got an awesome, just incredible lineup and everything, but also a guest appearance by Dave Ellefson. Do you have? Let's talk real quick how you got Dave involved, and then any ideas on special guests for future albums.
Well, Dave's involvement was kind of a surprise to both of us. Last year, I found myself on an airplane traveling to South America for a one-off show. Yeah. And I got seated next to Dave on the flight.
Wow.
And we had never met each other. We didn't know each other, but we ended up spending 18 hours on the flight, talking music and family and marriage and life.
Wow.
And got along really well. And then we both did our show down there, and then we ended up traveling back on the same flight. So
wow.
We really got to know each other well. About a week after I got back, I got an email from him with a song idea that he'd come up with, inspired by our conversations about the record I was working on, and it was really a nice surprise. And that started our dialogue, and we continued working on the track and developing it into the song that it became, which is a song called "Reinventing the Future."
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean,
it was kind of a funny story, kind of one of those things that kind of happens to you where you meet somebody and you have a lot of, similar interests and kind of a similar philosophy on life.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you're, working on a track together. It's a great thing.
Yeah. When fate intervenes, you got to go with it, man.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Geoff Tate, I've got to say, I've said it a few times. It's a tremendous honor to have you on the show. Even greater honor to have you kick off the new era of afternoon rock radio in Abilene, Texas, known as the Afternoon Binge. Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure, and good luck in your new position. And I'm very happy for you.